Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. A very warm welcome to yet another session in our Weekend with Wisdom series. In this series, we are going to be discussing Brahmalakshana, how to define the world's cause. And to take us through this series, we have with us Lalithadithya Gannavaram ji. Namaste, Aditya ji. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's begin this session with an invocation. समस्तजन कल्याणी निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ. Before I invite Lalithadithya ji to speak, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce him. Shatavadhani Lalithadithya Gannavaram ji completed his Bachelor in Science in Aerospace Engineering and Sanskritam, BA Sanskritam, with honors thesis on Kautilya's Arthashastra from the University of Texas at Austin. He is a Shishya of the Sringeri Jagadgurus and studied Tarkashastra from Darshana Shri Vishwanatha Gopala Krishna Shastri Garu. He has also studied other Shastras from Pandits such as Shri Vempati Kutumba Shastri Garu, Shri Chirravuri Padmanabha Sharma Garu, and currently he's pursuing further Shastric studies in Shri Sringeri Sharada Peeta. He has performed Shatavadhanas in Telugu and Sanskritam in India, as well as Ashtavadhanas in both languages in India, in the US and Canada. He has received several titles for his work and for his dedicated service. He has given numerous pravachanas on Ramayana, Bhagavata, Bhagavad Gita, Shankara Digvijaya, and so on. He has written Shatakas glorifying Lakshmi Narasimha and Kavyas in Sanskritam and Telugu. So in this series, we will be delving into the topic Brahmalakshana, how to define the world's cause. Something that there has been a lot of debates and discussions from, I don't know, from time immemorial. So we are really looking forward to listening to you, Lalit ji. With that introduction, I invite you to take over the session. Over to you.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Vagishadhyas sumanasas sarvarthanam upakrame yannatva kritakrityasyanamami gajananam sharadam bhojavadana vadanambuje sarvada sarvadasmakam sannidhim kriyat sadashiva samarambham shankaracharya madhyamam अस्मदाचार्य पर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां भारतीय करुणापात्रं भारती पदभूषणं भारती पदमारूढं भारती तीर्थमाश्रये विद्याविनयसम्पन्नं वीतरागं विवेकिनं वन्दे वेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञं विधुशेखरभारतीं सत्रूपममलं क्षीराब्धिमध्यस्थितं योगारूढमतिप्रसन्नवदनं भूषा सहस्रोज्ज्वलम् त्यक्षञ्चक्रपिनाकसाभयवरान् बिभ्राणमर्कच्छरिं छत्रीभूतफणीन्द्रमिन्दुधवलं लक्ष्मीनृसिंहं भजे येच्छयैव भुवनानि समुद्भवन्ति तिष्ठन्ति यान्ति च पुनर्विलयं युगान्ते तस्मै समस्तफलभोगनिबन्धनाय नित्यप्रबुद्धमुदिताय नमः शिवाय. Namaskaram everyone. Welcome to the session. So, Namaskarams to Sharadamba and the Jagadgurus. We will be going through Brahmalakshana, how to define the world's cause. This will be a slightly different vichara. because obviously there's a scientific mode of going about it. Red shift, blue shift, is the universe expanding? Is it compressing? Is there multiplicity in the kinds of effects that are created? So all of that is one type of argument to go into, but this will be slightly different. So as my base, I have taken a text called Siddhantalesha Sangraha of the great Advaitin scholar for excellence in several Shastras, Srimad Appayi. So Siddhantalesha Sangraha is basically what it sounds like, Siddhanta. Right? So many fields of thought, Lesha, so fragments of all of them, Sangraha, a compilation. So the text in itself is a compilation of various strands of thought from various points of view of Advaita Acharyas. Right? So even within Advaita, thought is not completely homogeneous. Right? Very popularly, very famously, we have the two schools of Bhamati and Vivarana, where I think the main difference that we can most easily see is the Avachedavada versus Bimbavada, Pratibhimbavada. Right? So the Vivarana school says that the Jiva is a Pratibimba of Ishvara, versus the Bhamati school, Vachaspati Mishra, who says that the Jiva is an Avacheda of Ishvara. So like this, right? So are Maya and Avidya separate? Are they two different things? So what is the nature of the Ishvara? What is the nature of Jiva? What is the Adhika? What is the Upadhi of Ishvara? What is the Upadhi of the Jiva? So all these different aspects of Advaita that quite frankly are finer scholastic points that don't really change the Advaita Siddhanta itself, have been very nicely, concisely summarized, explained, and compiled. So what Appadikshita will do is, for example, it starts off with Vidhivada. So you have the word Shrotavya, Atma Varya, Drashtavya, Shrotavya, right? So you have that the Veda does a vidhi, right? Veda gives a command that you must do Shravana. You must do Vedanta Shravana, you must do Shravana that relates to the Atma. So right away there are different types of vidhis. So in Mimamsa, in the Shastra that discusses how to interpret the corpus of Vedic literature, there are different types of vidhis. There are different types of injunctions that are given out. So some injunctions are meant to put forth something that was never discussed before. Some injunctions are not meant to actually, give out the thing that is said in the line, but instead is meant to negate something else that may have, been in place of the injunction. So there are several types of injunctions. So he starts off showing how different acharyas have taken this in different ways. So in this way, the text progresses. And as soon as the Vidhivada is over, we come to Brahmalakshana Vichara. So basically here what is happening is, how do you define Brahman? Right? So first of all, what is a Lakshana? Right? We are saying Brahmalakshana. So we are probably more acquainted with Brahman at this point than we are with what a Lakshana is. So Lakshana is quite simple. It is Lakshana, another name for Lakshana is Asadharana Dharma. So a quality that is unique, a unique quality or defining quality. Right? So a defining quality is something that is not found in anything else. Right? So it is a quality that is said to be doshatraya rahita. So what are these three doshas? What are these three defects are? They're usually told as avyapti, ativyapti, and asambhava. Right? So avyapti means, so the definition does not apply to some part of the defined. That is avyapti. Ativyapti is the definition applies to something. It applies to defined, but also to something that is not intended to be being defined. Right? So there is something that you wish to define. It applies to that as well as something more. And then you have asambhava, wherein it does not apply to the thing that you wish to define at all. Right? So the very common example that they'll give us is of a cow. Right? So if you're wishing to define gotva, right, what is the lakshana, what is the go lakshana? So if you start off with saying shringitvam, right? If you start off with saying, hornedness, having horns is the asadharana dharma of a cow. Then you will have ativyapti, because having horns applies to cows, but it also applies to deer, buffalo, I don't know what other animals have horns. It'll goats, whatever. It'll apply to all of them as well. If you say that kapilatvam, if you say that redness is the quality of a cow, or tawny. Kapila is a tawny color. Kapila go is a specific type of cow used in many rituals. It is a sacred animal, specifically sacred animal, even amongst cows. So if you say that this tawny color is the quality of a cow, then you run into avyapti, because while it does apply to some cows, it does not apply to all cows, because there are some cows that are black, white, there are some that are black and white. You have all of these problems. If you say go ekashaphatvam lakshanam, so a shapha is the hoof, right? So cows have cloven hoofs, which means that if you look at the hoof of a cow, it will be split into two sections. So if you say that ekashapatva means having a single unified hoof is the quality of a cow, you will have asambhava, because there is no cow to which that applies. But instead it will apply to I don't think even horses have that. Some other animals will have it. Even I think there are two types of taxonomy where you have I think hippopotami and rhinoceroses will have the unidactyla, and there are two phylums and two classifications in zoology also to talk about these kinds of animals. Right, so it won't fall. This lakshana will not apply to any cow, but will instead go to some other animal. Right, so these are the three doshas in a lakshana. So a definition, a proper lakshana of something is something that is bereft of this. So what you usually end up saying for a cow is sasnadi matvam. So there is this thing that a cow has. I think it is called a dewlap in English. There is this fold of skin that flaps around on the throat that is very visible. All cows, without exception, have that, and no animals other than a cow have that. So therefore, there is no ativyapti. There is nothing outside of a cow that has that. There is no avyapti. All cows have that, and there is, because there is no avyapti, there is no asambhava, because there is no question of it not being existing within the range of definition. Right. So this is the lakshana that we wish to seek. So the nice thing is this becomes a bit easier with Brahman, because in Advaita there is only one Brahman, right? So you do not have the doubt of avyapti, where it only applies to part of the set being defined and not the whole thing, because you only have one thing in the set. You might have asambhava, because there is asat. There are things that are contradictory to Brahman's nature, right? Asat, achit. So there are possible definitions that might fall there, but there's also very little possibility of you having ativyapti, because to apply to Brahman and something else, you need sadvidya. You need something that is like Brahman and also separate from Brahman. So therefore, the lakshana becomes a bit easier when we come to Brahman, but nonetheless, our Shastrakaras know how to make simple things complicated, so they have done their they have done their justice there. So now specifically when we come to Vedanta, and specifically when we come to Advaita Vedanta, within that we have two ways of defining Brahman. So you would have heard these words in numerous places. You would have heard Swarupa Lakshana and Tatastha Lakshana. So these are pretty common terms, but nonetheless we will define them again. So Swarupa Lakshana, Swarupameva Lakshanam, Swarupa Lakshanam. This is actually a slightly problematic term, because this is where Dvaitis and Vishishtadvaitins poke holes, because they say, so what is a Lakshana? Lakshya Vrittitvam, Lakshanam, Lakshya Vritti. Right, so a Lakshana is that which exists within the Lakshya. Right, Gotva exists within the go. Right, the quality of a cow, where does it exist? It exists in the cow. The problem with this Swarupa Lakshana is it is Satchidananda, right? The quality of existence, consciousness, bliss. The problem is that we do not say that these are qualities of Brahman. These are the nature of Brahman. Brahman is of the nature of existence, the nature of consciousness, and the nature of bliss. Right? Brahman does not have existence, have consciousness, have bliss. Now, obviously in the Vedic schools of thought, in the schools that uphold duality, Advaita, Veda, Bheda, Achintya Bheda, Bheda, all of this, they of course have no problem, because they will say Anandavan, not Vasau Anandaha. Right? Even in the Nyayika school, this is actually a straight line from that. Anandavan Asau, not Vasau Anandaha. Right? He is the repository, Ananda Adhikaranam Right? Jnana Adhikaranam is the saying, is the definition of Atma in Tarka, in Nyaya. So in the Nyaya school, which is a Advaitic school, which is a Advaitic Darshana, when they define Atma, first of all, they start off by saying Atma Dvividha, Jivatma, Paramatma Cheti. So already we have a problem with them there. Then the second, they say Jnanadhikaranam Atma. Right? So they say that the Atma is the repository. So it is the locus in which cognition happens. But we say no, Jnana is the nature of Atma, right? Cognition, the sense that I am, this recognition of existence is the nature of Atma. It is not existing within Atma. So to say that Satchidananda is the Lakshana of Brahman is a bit problematic because Lakshana does not exist within Brahman, but rather it is Brahman. This would be akin to saying, define a cow, you say a cow. Right? That you cannot define a cow by saying that. You need to give a quality, you need to give some Lakshana, some guna, right? So that you need to give that. So that is why this Swarupa Lakshana is a bit problematic because so seems problematic, but that is why it is called Swarupa Lakshana. Swarupameva Lakshanam. Right? Its nature itself it is defining quality. Swarupa, right? Swarupa is its nature, one's own true nature, one's own form. Swarupa, that itself is a Lakshana, which is why it's called Swarupa Lakshana. So obviously this is the main Brahman that we wish to know. Right? So even in Bhashya, in Sutra Bhashya, Bhagavad says that Kim Dve Brahmani Veditavye. What do we now have to learn about two Brahmans? He says, yes, there is one Jnaya Brahma and Upasya Brahma. So this definition is clearly given. So there is one Brahma to be known, to be realized, right? That we are supposed to merge into once we realize. That our identity is supposed to merge into, to be specific. But then on the other hand, you have the Upasya Brahman. So obviously the raw human mind, the unaided human mind, the naked human mind cannot immediately jump to that level, which is why we are given Ishvara, for lack of a better term. That is why we are given an Ishvara and why we are given various Upasanas, whether it be in the Upanishads or later, whether it be through Tantra and Mantra Shastra and all that. The reason we are given an Upasya Brahman is solely for the sake of the human mind, to latch on to the qualities of Brahman, then leave off the names and the forms, then latch on to the essence, which is again going to be the Swarupa, right? The Satchidananda. So now we have understood that there is a Swarupa Lakshana and a Jnaya Brahman that defines the Jnaya Brahman. But that cannot be the first step for any sadhaka. So, which is why Veda Mata very compassionately, with the love of a mother, very compassionately gives us another definition. Yatova imani bhutani jayante, yena jatani jivanti, yat prayanti visamvishanti, tad vijijnasasya tad brahmeti. This is the definition that Veda gives us. Right? So in Taittiriya itself, of course, we have the very famous Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Right? So first the Phalakirtana is given. So the Brahmavit, someone that knows Brahman, Paramapmoti, he attains the ultimate state. Right? And Tadesha Abhyukta, that will now be told. What is that? What is that Brahman? Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Right? So Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Anantam means unbounded. But later we say Satchidananda. Right? So where did this Ananda come in the end? When you have in Bhruguvalli, when you have the Panchakosha Prakriya, you have Anando Brahmeti Vyajanat. Right? So that last realization that Bhrugu has, that first he says Annam Brahmeti Vyajanat, then realizes that cannot be true. Then he goes to Prano Brahmeti Vyajanat, realizes that cannot be true. So after all of this is done, he ends up at Anando Brahmeti Vyajanat, and then he doesn't go back. Saisha Bhargavi Varuni Vidya. There, it ends there. And so that Ananda Brahmeti Vyajanat, we take that Ananda and take Satya Jnana from here. And we say usually Satchidananda is the Swarupa Lakshana of Brahma. So to help us with this, then later you have this next definition, Yatova Imani Bhutani Jayante, from whence all these bhutas emanate. Then Yena Jatani Jivanti, and in which they abide. Yet Prayantya Visamvishan, right? Yena, not even in which, but due to which they abide. And then Yet Prayantya Visamvishanti, into which they dissolve. Right? Tad Brahma, that is Brahman, Tad Vijijnasas. So this is the Upasya Brahman, because this is what Varuna instructs to Bhrugu. Right? This is what Varuna, he says, okay, I'm giving you a rough, not a rough, here's a quality. Right? Here are certain attributes. Go figure out what that entity is that possesses these qualities. Go figure out that entity that is qualified by these attributes. So then he goes off doing his inquiries and his sadhana and his vichara, and he comes back with several answers. So if we are, first of all, if we look at this, so yatova imani bhutani jayante. So first of all, this word bhutani, bhuta generally means one of two things. It either means prani, right? Bhuta means prani, or it refers to the Panchamahabhutas, right? The Prithvi, Tejo, Vayu, Akasha. It will refer to either these or those. But because there is no vinigamaka here, right? To use a Shastric terminology, there is no vinigamaka means there is no context clue as to which definition is preferred here. There is no problem in taking both. So what we end up taking here is karya matra jagat, karyani. Bhuta shabdena karya matram rishyate. So by the word bhuta, anything that is a product, anything that is created is taken. So basically, anything that is created, from whence anything that is created emerges, yena jatani jivanti, and due to which all of these effects stay in existence, right? So the word usually karya, karana, karya in Sanskrit will be cause and effect. So that due to which all these effects stay in existence, and yet prayanti abhisamvishanti. Veda is very careful about the words it uses. So at first, I will also drop some, what do you call it? I will use some Sanskrit terminology here and there for those of you that are interested in that. So here, both of these look like Kriya Padas. So yet prayanti, right? So iti, yayanti, prayanti. It looks like a Kriya Pada. And just abhisamvishanti also looks like a Kriya Pada. But here we have, because we want to show Laya as one solidified action, we take prayanti, means liyamanani santi. So as they are dissolved, this is a shatranta, right? So for eti, the dhatu eti, when you make it into a present participle noun, you get the form yat, prayat. So prayat, prayati, prayanti. It is napunsakalinga bahuvachana. It is the neuter form, a nominative, plural. So basically prayat means those that are dissolving. And those things that are dissolving, abhisamvishanti, they attain unity with tadatmyena vishanti. They tadatmya means tadatmata, to become of that nature, to dissolve completely. So when things dissolve, they attain unity into which, right? For example, because not everything that dissolves attains unity, right? For example, salt dissolves in water, but it does not attain unity with the water. Right. So because you still experience the difference in taste. You can still say, okay, this is the salt's taste, and then if there's water separately, you'll know that there is, this is separate taste of water. So in that same vein, that is not the case with Brahman. Every effect that dissolves attains homogeneity. It is a homogeneous dissolution that takes place. So to tell us that, Veda uses both words, prayanti abhisamvishanti. So as they dissolve, they attain unity. Just as a pot, if you mush a pot back together into its mud, it becomes homogeneous again with mud as it always was. Right. So that is the nature of the dissolution that we are looking. So now we have been given this one quality of Brahman in Veda. Yatova imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti prayanti visamati. So to put this into one word, this is usually said as Jagat Janma Sthiti Laya Karanatvam Brahmano Lakshana. Right? So the being the cause of the birth, the sustenance, and the death, or the dissolution of the world, the cosmos, is the quality of Brahman. And this is, of course, what is given to us in the second Brahmasutra. Right? Janmadhyasya yataha. So asya means of this, that which is pratyaksha, that which is what do you call it? Directly perceived. Right? This world, right? Is generally, hopefully speaking, if we are all awake and sound right now, we are perceiving the world directly. Right? So if we say something is this, it means we are perceiving it right now. So asya, of this, janma, the janma, etc. So by the etc. we take janma, sthiti, laya. So birth, sustenance, and dissolution. Yataha, due to which. Right? So that is the sutra, that is the Brahmasutra. So in today's talk, we will be looking at talks, I guess, since we also have the evening session. We will be looking at some Brahmasutras as well, because in the Siddhanta Sangraha that I have taken as my base, Appaya Dikshita very nicely brings up certain adhikaranas in the Brahmasutras that illustrate certain points. So, as and necessary, we'll be going through maybe a couple of sutras as well. So, that is the second sutra, Janmadhyasya. So, that is also giving us the same quality of Brahman. So, that which is the cause of the birth, sustenance, and dissolution of all the worlds. So far, so good. So we have a definition so far. So now start the gymnastics. So now in the text, Appaya Dikshita now asks, Kim pratyekam lakshanam uta militva ekam lakshanam. So is this all combined one quality, or is it enough to say that jagat janma karanatvam? Jagat is one quality, is enough to be a quality, to be Brahmalakshana, or Jagat Sthiti Karanatvam, is that enough to be Brahmalakshana, or Jagat Laya Karanatvam, is that enough to be Brahmalakshana? So Pratyekam, can you take these individual causal relationships to be the definition of Brahman, or does it have to be all three of these together? And so it is actually a pretty neat question, right? So why do we have to say three? Because if we are being quite frank, there is no other source of the world other than Brahman, right? As per Advaita, there is nothing else, right? Atmana Akasha Sambhuta, that is it, done. From Atmana Akasha and all the other bhutas came, and then Akasha Vayu, Vayu Ragni, all that happened. So for us, we really have no other cause other than Brahman. So if you say, Ananyagamitvat, right? So these lakshanas are ananyagami. These lakshanas literally do not go towards anything else. They can only point towards Brahman. So if you say, for example, Jagat Janma Karanatvam, that is enough, right? There is nothing other than Brahman that is the cause of the world. So if you say Jagat Janma Karanatam, that is enough. You do not need to tag further things, onto the quality, right? So for example, if I am saying the Brahmasutra Bhashya, if I'm wishing to describe that, right? I don't have to say the Brahmasutra Bhashya that was written by Bhagavat, if I'm saying the Brahmasutras, for example, I don't have to say the Brahmasutras that are in four padas, that was written by Vedavyasa Maharshi, that was then commented on by Bhagavad. It is enough to say the Brahmasutras that were written by Vedavyasa Maharshi. You know what we're talking about. You don't have to go on and say Bhagavad Pada, Vyakya, then other people wrote Sabhyakhyas. There is no need for that, right? So in the same way, is it not enough to just say Jagat Janma Karanatvam? And then so we show the first paksha of a text called the Kaumudikara. So there is one text called Tattva Kaumudi. So in that text, it is that text author's, it is his opinion that of these qualities, even one is enough to be the Lakshana for Brahman. So you can just say, yeah, sure, Jagat Janma Karanatvam Brahmana Lakshana. Jagat Siddhi Karanatvam Brahmana Lakshana. Jagat Laya Karanatvam is the quality of Brahman. Or Jagat Siddhi Karanatvam is the quality of Brahman. And you can say that. And obviously, it is not enough to say that. Have to show that this is supported by Veda and logic. So in Advaita especially, and in Advaita texts, especially those that have come in time after the Sutra and Sutra Bhashya, the way that Shastric support is shown is we maybe do not always directly show a Vedic quotation. Sometimes they will, of course. But another way of doing it is they will show a sutra itself. So if they show that the Sutrakara, if they show that Badrayana, was of this opinion, that is generally taken to mean, okay, yeah, so this is Vedanta holds this. This is because we trust wholeheartedly in Badrayana Maharshi's, in his knowledge, and that he comprehended the Vedas and Vedantas accurately. So if his Angikara is there, if his acceptance is there to some certain point, it can be taken as a pramana, it can be taken as valid. So here, what they did was, they have shown us three adhikaranas in the Brahmasutras. Specifically, they have shown us three sutras, three Brahmasutras, wherein the Sutrakara himself has taken only one quality each to define Brahman. And of course, the way that the Brahmasutras work is, each sutra will have a Vishayavakya. So each sutra will have some Upanishadic line or some Upanishadic mantra that it discusses. So each sutra will be put forth for the sake of explaining or clearing or justifying the Advaita holding of some particular Upanishadic mantra. So when we show that the Sutrakara was of an opinion, by extension, it ends up showing that the Upanishad is also of the same opinion. So, for example, if we say that Badarayana Maharshi was of the opinion that only one of these is enough to be a quality, and if we show a sutra that shows that only one quality is enough to define Brahman, then by extension, we will also be showing that the Upanishad is also of the same opinion that one of these is enough to define Brahman. Right? So we will look at three of these sutras. So in this one sutra called Atta, Charachara Grahana, this is called Attradhikarana. So in this sutra only defines Brahman as the cause of the laya of the world, as the cause of the dissolution of the world. Then there will be another sutra called Antaryam Hridayavadishu Tadvyapadeshat. So this talks about Brahman solely as the cause of sthiti, as the cause of the sustenance of the world. And then there is this last one called Jagadvachitvat. That is the entirety of the sutra. The sutra consists of one word, Jagadvachitvat, wherein the sutra talks about Brahman as the cause of the world. Right? So we will go into these in detail because the nature of sutras is to be concise, short, and cryptic. So if we just say the sutra itself, it is not enough. It requires extra information. Right? So, for example, so generally the way we'll do it is we'll tell the sutra, the meaning of the words, then we'll look at the Upanishadic line that it deals with, and then we'll look at the meaning of the sutra. So, in this first one, Atta Chara Chara Grahanat. So, in this, we are saying that Brahman is Atta. Atta means the person that eats, the person that swallows. Right? So, we're saying that Brahman is the entity that swallows this entire cosmos. And for this is meant to talk about, there is one Upanishadic mantra in Katha, in the Kathopanishad. So Yama is teaching Nachiketas, and he says, Yasya Brahmacha Kshatrancha Ubhe Bhavata Odanaha Ka Ittha Veda Mrityur Yasya Avasejanam Ka Ittha Veda Yatrasaha. This is a very famous mantra. Mrityur Yasya Avasejanam is a quite beautiful usage. Right? So we're basically saying, so that entity for whom Brahma and Kshatriya are both food, Odana, they are both food. So Yasyacha, so for which entity, Brahmacha Kshatrancha, both of those are becoming Odana, both of those are becoming food. And furthermore, Mrityur Yasya Upasechanam. Upasechana is a chutney, a side dish. So while Brahman is swallowed, so by Brahma Kshatriya, we generally take the cosmos. It is Brahmalakshana for all living beings, the entire cosmos. So while Brahman is eating all of this, right? While we eat a idli or dosa, you want some, podi or sambar or chutney on the side. So like that, Brahman is dipping it in mrityu and swallowing it. Mrityu yasya upasechanam. Right? So mrityu is the side dish. It means Brahman is swallowing death itself. Right? So which is why even in normal upasana, Devataradhana, you will hear words like Kala Kala to refer to Shiva. Right? Or Mrityunjaya for Shiva. Or very popularly for Narasimha, you have Mrityu. Right? There is a name. It is also in Veda. Yasya Chhaya Mritam Yo Mrityu Kasmai Devaya Havisha Videva. Right? So all of these qualities that we ascribe to our devatas that we worship are none other than qualities of Brahman. Right? So as we talked about earlier, this Upasya Brahman has been so nicely handed down to us by Sampradayikas. Not just in philosophical thought, not just in remote manuscripts and palm leaf texts or scholarly disputes, but in the very stotras that we tell every day, in the very deities that we worship, in the very artifacts that we revere as Bhagavan. Right? In the way that even the most common man can do a simple, quick aradhana in the morning. Even in the most simple of prakriyas, our forefathers have ensured that the most complex Brahma Tattva is still available to everyone. Right? So where is the usual songs that we have saying, Mrityunjaya, Kala Kala? These are all names that you will find even in the most, common of songs, right? Even in whether it be the Nayanars or any Shaiva Bhakta, any Shaiva devotional literature, these are all names that you will find. But these names in the end are all meant to trace back to this Brahman, right? So if we look at the roots of pretty much every aspect of the Devata Aradhanas that we do, of worship that Hindus have, whether it be idol worship or mantras or japa or tantra or yaga or namasmarana or whatever, some way or the other, in some shape or form, you will find a path back to the Upanishads, just because that is the way that this beautiful system has been designed. So, to come back to this, all these epithets like Mrityunjaya, Mrityumritya, Kala Kala come from this. So, Mrityuryasyopasechanam. So, even right, Antaka, death, Mrityu itself is being swallowed as if it were a side dish. Right? So, Kaitha Veda Yatra Saha, who truly knows where that being exists. Right? This is just where the mantra. This is just where the mantra exists. Now, the way that these sutras work is they will give a Purva Pakshi, so the prima facie view, right? So the opponent's view, and then they will give the Siddhanta Paksha. So what does the opponent say? He says that, okay, so this mantra actually does not apply to Brahman. This mantra is actually meant to apply to the Jiva. And then obviously you're all confused. What are you talking? Why does this apply to the Jiva? So then he says, so when we say Odana, right, when this becomes Anna, obviously, Brahman, whatever entity we're talking about is not sitting there with a banana leaf and water waiting for these Brahma and Kshatriya to be served to it on a leaf. What we mean is it is bhogya, right? Just as Anna is enjoyed, right? In the same way, this entire cosmos is enjoyed, right? So by the jiva, if there is an apple, he enjoys it with his tongue. If a breeze blows, he enjoys it with his skin, right? If there is something to see, if there is a flower, he enjoys it with his eye. If there is a nice smell, he enjoys it with his nose. So just as Anna is enjoyed, so that enjoyability of Anna is taken, and the opponent says that yes, it is the jiva that is talked about here, because it is the jiva that enjoys the jagat by a variety of a myriad means, by numerous means, right? So this is actually talking to the jiva, and then the Siddhanti replies, na. So no, the atta here is Brahman. Why? So in the sutra, then the cause is given, chara chara grahanat, because you are talking about the entire cosmos. And furthermore, there is the second part of the mantra, Mrityur Yasya Upasechanam. So, Mrityu Upasechanatva also needs to be applied to the Jiva. So, what is the nature of an Upasechana, right? So, when Veda gives us imagery, we need to make sure that the whole, at least within that mantra, it fits. So, what is an Upasechana? What is a side dish? It is something that contributes to the main dish being eaten while also being eaten, right? So what we mean here is Mrityu contributes to the Brahmakshatra being eaten while also being swallowed. The problem is the Jiva's enjoyment of the cosmos has nothing to do with Mrityu. But the Jiva's enjoyment of the cosmos has nothing to do with death. There is no assistance of death. And there is no experience of death per se. It means that death is not experienced as a vastu. If he dies, he experiences death. That is a different death. But death is not experienced as an object, right? So therefore, this cannot be the jiva, because A, no jiva experiences the entire jagat, number one. And B, because the last part of the mantra then will not make sense. You cannot explain the last part of the mantra if you take this entity to be the jiva. So therefore, you must take it to be Brahman, because it is only Brahman that can destroy the world while also destroying death. Right? So by means of Mrityu, he destroys the world, right? All the living beings, right? By the world, if you're saying Mrityu, you mean living beings, right? So all living beings are destroyed by means of death, and then death itself perishes. So this makes sense with Brahman, right? Because Yama, Indra, all these devatas also in the end become, they also at some point have to dissolve back into Brahman. So because of this interpretation, if we take this interpretation, then the entire mantra is accounted for. There are no holes, there are no inconsistencies. So now to come back to our original point, here Veda has only talked about Brahman as the source of the world's dissolution, right? There is no mention here of Brahman being the cause or the support or the support for the world to abide. Upanishad has left it at just saying, so there is this one entity that swallows the entire world. There is this one entity that devours the entire world. That is Brahman. Right? So Upanishad itself has only given us in this mantra Brahman. Brahman as the cause of dissolution. Right? So Upanishad has left it at that. And in the same way, the Sutrakara also, Badarani Maharshi also in the Sutra, has only given us Atta Charachara Grahanat. Done. Right? So Charachara Grahanat in the Sutra means, so because by the words Brahma and Kshatra, the Charachara Grahana is happening. We are taking the entire cosmos that will only happen for Brahman. That can only work for Brahman, therefore this is Brahman. So here we see the Sutrakara has shown that Layakaranatva is enough to define Brahman because he himself has taken Brahman there. Now let us also look at another example where he talks about Brahman solely as Sthiti Karana, right? So the cause of abundance. So when we say abundance, we mean Brahman is the Niyamaka, right? We mean that Brahman is the master, the controller. He's the Niyamta, right? He controls it. He controls the cosmos. And when we say Brahman here, we mean Ishvara. We will get into that argument later. There is a big argument about whether this Brahman is Ishvara Rupa, Jiva Rupa, Vaya Rupa, or just Maya. So that is, maybe we'll get to that in the evening session. But for now, when we say that Brahman is Sthiti Karana, we mean that he is the source of the regulation of the world, the control of the world. Right? So there is this one sutra then, Antaryami, Adhideva Adhitadvyapadeshat. So what this sutra means is Brahman is the Antaryami talked about in Brihadaranyaka, in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Adhidevadishu Tadvyapadeshat. Tadvyapadeshat means because its quality, because it is talked about Adhidevadishu, in the Adhideva, etc. So we won't understand, as I said, in the sutra, you won't understand these words unless you actually look at the Vishaya Vakyas, look at the Upanishads. So what the Upanishads here says is, Ya imanchalokam paranchalokam yontaro yamayati. So that is the line. So ya imanchalokam, so this world, paranchalokam, the world beyond, right? Swarga and all that. Yaha antaro yamayati. He who antaraha, being within, yamayati, controls. Okay. So this is the Vishaya Vakya. And then the Veda goes on to say, Yaha apsutishtan, he who is within water. Yah prithivyam tishthan, he who is within Prithvi. So and then it says Yontariyamati. So he who is within Prithvi and controls Prithvi, he who is within water controls water. There is a big sequence like that. And then after all of this is coming, then Ityahidaivatam is one line. So basically this Prithvi, Jala, all the things that Brahman has talked about being within, this all is referred to as Adhideva. Right? So now we have a bit more clarity in the sutra now. We are saying that Brahman is the thing that is being talked about as the Antaryami of all of these things because it is talked about. Because that is what is being discussed. Now, again, we have the what do you call it? The opponent again comes. He says, once again, the entity being talked about here is not Brahman, but rather a Jiva. Just as you sometimes the way it works is we will be more confused by the opponent's view than our view. Because as Vedantins, we are very used to Brahman being the end-all, solve-it-all, everything. Right? There is this one term in cinematography called Deus Ex Machina. So what it means is, so the whole movie will happen, some plot will happen, whether it has head or tail, you will have no idea. But in the end, some windfall event will happen and it will solve everything. This event that solves everything will not be built up, it will not be shown throughout the course of the events, it will not be developed. It is very random, it comes out of nowhere, but somehow it solves everything. So that is called Deus Ex Machina in cinematography and storytelling. So we as Vedantins, especially as Advaita Vedantins, are very used to Brahman being that person. If we don't know anything, we say Advaita. If we don't know what is happening, we say Brahman. If we don't know anything, we'll just say Brahman and Jiva, they are all the same, everything is one. So being used to such things, sometimes we forget that other things in the world exist beside Brahman. So, which is why we become very confused, for example, when the Purvapakshi here says that, I don't think that this mantra is talking about Brahman, but instead I think this mantra is talking about the Jiva. So then obviously, we will necessarily have to ask, how on earth is this mantra supposed to be talking about the Jiva? So then the reply the Purvapakshi gives is, so there are certain people that have yoga siddhis, right? So certain yogis, through various practices and sadhanas, they attain siddhis, right? Anima, being able to become small, Mahima, becoming bigger, Laghima, becoming lighter, Garima, becoming heavier, Prapti, getting whatever you want, Pradhamya, going wherever you want, Ishitva, the ability to lead other people, command other people, Vashitva, the ability to bring other people under your sway. These are all the Ashtasiddhis that you get from yoga. So some yogis will have the ability to reduce their size, go into other beings and control them. So therefore, the Purvapakshi says that, yeah, I don't think this is about Brahman, but rather I think this is referring to a yogi, some jiva that has attained yogic powers. Because he also can say, Sarvani cha bhutani antarayamayati. He is also controlling many beings within. But there are two problems here, that this cannot be the jiva number one, because the yogi cannot control many things at once. Right? So the yogi can only choose to control one thing at a time. The yogi can only enter one thing and control one thing at a time. The second thing will be that the yogi has actually gotten these siddhis from Ishvara himself. Right? So the yogi, these powers are not native to the yogi. These powers are not latent in him. These powers have been obtained as through the grace of Ishvara, right? As the fruit of his yogic exercises, of his yogic regimen. So therefore, it does not make sense to attribute this mantra to a yogi who has attained this quality through some siddhi, but rather to the person who gave the yogi the siddhi and in whom the siddhi is latent. So in this way, we end up, the Sutrakara and Upanishad also ends up showing us that the being within this entire cosmos, being within every being within this cosmos, being within Prithvi, Jala and Veda, Bhumi, all of this is controlling it, is regulating it, is actually Brahman, is actually Ishvara, is not a jiva, it is not it is not the individual entity. So in this, what do we have? We have the Upanishad discussing the jiva. We have the Upanishad discussing Brahman solely as the Antaryami. Right? There is no mention of Brahman being the cause of the birth or the cause of the death of the worlds or the dissolution of the worlds. Only as the controller, the Niyanta, right? The regulator of the worlds. And in the same way, in the Sutra also, we have him being referred to as the Antaryami. There is no other reference to any other quality of Brahman. So that is the example that we give for Brahman just being the Sthitikara. So now, the last one that we need to see is Janma Karma. Right? So is there any place where Veda has said that that Brahman has only defined Brahman as the cause of the birth of the worlds? And by extension, and also, is there any place where Badarayana Maharshi has given us a sutra where he only terms Brahman or discusses Brahman as the cause of the genesis of the worlds? Right. So now we come to the last of this triad of sutras that show our point. These are all scattered, interspersed throughout the Sutra Bhashya, but through the Sharirika Sutras. But Advaita Dikshita has brought them all into one place. Advaita Dikshita, quite frankly, has only talked about Atta Charachara Karna. The Vyakhyakara has then brought up the other two. So we have this other sutra called Jagadvachitvat. Means because this means the Jagat. So once again, we have no idea what they're talking about. So again, we have another Vakya. Yove balaka etesham purushanam karta yasya vaidat karma savai veditavyaha. This is what you have. This is in Kaushitiki Brahmana Upanishad. So what this is, so one person is doing Upanisha to another. He says, Yove balaka. Balaka is the name of the person. So etesham purushanam karta yaha. So that entity, that is the cause of, that is the creator of all of these purushas. By these purushas, there in the mantras previously, Aditya, Agni, all of these people are talked about as purushas. So, O Balaka, the entity that is the cause of all of these purushas, such as Indra, Agni, Aditya and all of these, Agni, Aditya, all of these people. And Yasya Vaitat Karma. And he to whom this karma belongs, Savai Veditavyaha. He is the Brahman that you need to know. So this is the Veda Vakya that is given to us. So obviously, once again, the Purvapakshi comes and says, okay, this is not talking about Brahman, but this is talking about the Jiva. So here we have actually people slightly sympathize with the Purvapakshi because we are hearing Yasya Vaitat Karma, right? So karma only exists for the Jiva. Brahman does not have karma. Ishvara does not have karma. Because because karma is someone with a sense of doership accrues karma. The thing with Ishvara is, Ishvara does not have abhimana towards his three bodies, right? So I'm sure you would have heard in Vedanta, right? One of the most first things that one of the primary things that we talk about, one of the things that you talk about first is that the Vyashti is Jiva, Samashti is Ishvara, right? The individual is Jiva, the sum total is Ishvara, right? So one Sthula Sharira is the Jiva, the sum total of all the Sthula Shariras is Vaishvara, Ishvara. Whereas here it will be Vishwa, the Jiva. And in the same way, the Sukshma Sharira will be, the Vyashti Jiva will be termed Tejasa, whereas the Samashti, the sum total of all the Sukshma Shariras will be termed Sutratma, Hiranyagarbha and Ishvara. Right? The Ishvara, that is the sum total of all the Sthula Shariras, will be termed Hiranyagarbha, also called Sutra. And then in the same way, the Karana Sharira of the Jiva, when the Jiva is the Karana Sharira, that term, then the Jiva will be termed Prajna. Now, the sum total of all of the Karana Shariras will be called Mayavi, Ishvara, or Antaryami, one of these. So, you will be given that Ishvara is the sum total, the samashti of all of the Jiva entities. Now, the difference though is the Jiva has abhimana towards his bodies. The Jiva has a sense of I-ness with regards to the body. In that there is adhyasa, right? Superimposition has happened. The Jiva's sense of ahamkara has been properly imposed onto all the three bodies. So that when the body walks, he says, I am walking. When the tongue tastes, he says, I am tasting. When the eye sees, he says, I see. Even when the mind thinks or the mind wants, he says, I want, I think, I desire. Right, so the Jiva will have adhyasa. The Jiva has abhimana towards his bodies. But Ishvara does not have abhimana towards his body. Therefore, Ishvara, although he performs a great deal of activities, right? He's actually doing way more than any of us Jivas do. Even though he does a lot more than us, because he does not have a ragadvesha and also does not have he does not have abhimana, he does not accrue any karma. Ishvara is bereft of karma. Which is why this line in the mantra, right? Yasya Vaitat Karma, he to whom this karma belongs, cannot therefore belong to Brahman or Ishvara, and therefore this mantra must be talking about the Jiva. At which point we then ask the Purvapakshi, okay, I understand that you think that this mantra means the Jiva because Yasya Vaitat Karma. But then how do you explain the first part? Yovai Balaga Etesham Purushanam Karta. How do you explain the part of the mantra that says that this entity is the creator of Aditya, Agni, and all of those devatas? Because, I don't know about you, but I at least have never sat down and decided to pop out an Agni or Aditya from my body. Right? So this is not visible in Jivas, that Jivas create these devatas and all that. So how can you say that this mantra pertains to the Jiva? So then he says, you are quite correct, that the Jiva does not sit down and spontaneously manifest Aditya or Agni, but the Jiva Adrishta Dvara becomes the cause of the genesis of all of this, because the Jiva has some karma, right? The Jiva has some karma balance due to which the world manifests, right? So it is a well-known fact in Vedanta that the world manifests because of the Jiva. Right? The way things are, the way in the world, the way that they are, because it is the Jiva's fate to properly, the world is built to properly navigate the tangled web of all of the karma phalas of the Jivas. So if there is an Aditya, if there is an Agni, if there are these devatas these devatas exist because of the jiva's karma that is unresolved. These devatas exist as part of the world. These devatas are part of the world which exists because of the jiva's unresolved karma. And if we want to take this even a step further, these devatas do things, these devatas arrange the world in such a way that is conducive to the jiva's karma being experienced by that jiva. So therefore, the jiva Okay, I think my internet cut out. I'm not sure until audible.
Yes, we couldn't hear you for some time.
Oh, until which part was I audible?
You were just talking about the third aspect. You were going into the third aspect.
Oh, I need to start from the third sutra, is it?
No, you had introduced it and not able to exactly place where it will
Okay, okay. Did you, okay, let me just tell you what you talked about and you tell me where it stopped. So, did you hear the part where you talked about why Ishvara does not have karma? Was that audible?
Yes.
Okay, that was audible. Did you hear me explain why the jiva is the cause, becomes even the cause of Aditya and Agni?
Yes, that till there we saw, correct.
Okay, okay. So I'll tell that.
Yeah.
So basically what happens is the creation comes into existence for the jiva to experience karma. And as part of this creation, Indra, Agni, Varuna, Aditya, all of these devatas are also put into creation solely because of all of our unresolved karma. Right. So through that succession of karma, right, by means of his karma, the jiva technically also becomes a cause for Agni and Aditya. So that first part of the mantra, Yovai balaka etesham purushanam karta, Yovai yasya vaitat karma, savai veditavya. O balaka, he who is the creator for these purushas such as Aditya and Agni, and he who is and he to whom this karma belongs, savai veditavya, he is the Brahman that we need to know. Right? So thus far the Purvapakshi has explained his view as to why this is the jiva. So if you ask me, this is actually a reasonably convincing argument. So the beauty is in our Siddhanta is that the Purvapakshi will actually be built up very strongly, especially Appaya Dikshitendra in his Nyaya Rakshamani. So there directly Brahmasutras are taken up. But there he will build up the Purvapakshi in such a way that at some point, if you're not careful, you will maybe become under the delusion that Appaya Dikshita is the Purvapaksha itself is the Siddhanta. There will be so much weight given to the Purvapaksha that you think, okay, I think this is what Dikshita intends to convey. I think this is the point he's trying to make. Until the dosa is flipped. And then you realize, oh, okay, this is not what he's saying. This is only the Purvapaksha. But the reason why the Purvapaksha is given so much explanation and why so much time is dedicated to it is twofold. A, it is the beauty of Indian logic systems that you do not have the right to critique something until you have proven that you have understood it thoroughly. And even then, you are not supposed to explain the Purvapaksha as per your Siddhanta. You are supposed to explain the Purvapaksha as per the Purvapaksha. You are supposed to explain the Purvapaksha the way that he would. You are supposed to negate and contradict your own Siddhanta and give the Purvapaksha as much credence and as much support as possible. Only then are you eligible to even talk about it. So what this does is it basically gets rid of armchair theorists. All those people that drink chai, have muruku, and debate topics. It gets rid of all of these people. These people that don't do anything about anything. They have put no effort into it. They just comment and they negate and they bash for the sake of bashing. That immediately goes out the window. If you're not willing to give the other person the other side of the aisle, the respect and the care that a proper side, that a proper philosophical point deserves, then just don't talk about it. No one is begging you to talk about this. Right? So that is one thing. The second thing is for the student, right? So this is from the Siddhanta side. From the student side, the more back and forth that the mind is subjected to, right? The more variety that the mind is subjected to, the more intellectual polishing that the mind is subject to, the better it becomes able to grasp minutiae, the better it becomes able to grasp things that are, a bit more tricky to grasp. It becomes better trained in order to understand things that would not be that easily understandable by an unrefined raw mind. So in order to help the student, as well as to ensure integrity in the academic process, the Purvapaksha is always given this degree of explanation, at times even contradicting the Siddhanta itself. So far, we have actually shown that the Jiva is being talked about here. But now the Siddhanta comes. This is not exactly true, right? Because the mantra is, there are some pathas in which Purusha is also added to the end. Right? So yovai balaka etesham purushanam karta yasya vedat karma savai veditavya purusha. So Purusha is also added something to the end of the mantra. So the thing is here though, this parampara sambandha has kalpana gaurava. So this is a philosophical point wherein something requires more explanation than is necessary. Right. So there is no need to go to the length of saying that through adrishta he is the cause of the world. So therefore, what we instead do is your main problem, right? Your main problem here is with the word karma, right? So where the main problem that you have is we cannot say that Ishvara has karma, that Brahman has karma, and therefore you are saying that we have to take the jiva there. So now there are two things that we need to do. First of all, we need to show that Ishvara and Brahman is the karta of all of the Aditya and Agni and all that. And B, we need to show that yasya vaitat karma, to whom this karma. So this phrase talks, right? The problem with the Purvapakshi is that you are taking away Mukhya Kartritva and taking upon yourself Gauna Kartritva. So basically what that means is you are getting rid of actual creatorship and instead you are ascribing namesake creatorship to the Jiva, right? So the Jiva is not actually the creator there, but you have made it fit somehow or the other, right? You have given him namesake creatorship. So yeah, he's not exactly the creator, but it is because of his karma that those are being created by someone else. So that is a problem because you have gone slightly too far from the meaning of the word directly, right? So there is no problem in deviating from the word's dictionary meaning when it is necessary. But when it is not necessary, deviating from the word's meaning becomes a flaw. So for us, we will take Mukhya Kartritva, means we will take the main meaning of creatorship, wherein, yeah, directly they have been created by Brahman, right? So Brahman has created Aditya, Agni, Indra, yada, whatever you want to put there. So far, that side, the Purvapakshi has been answered and the Siddhanta has been established. That Brahman is the creator of Aditya and all that. Now the second part, yasya vaitat karma, yasya va etat karma. Right? So now we take karma to not mean the punya papa phalita, but karma to mean karya, to mean effect. Right? So we have this thing where karma means effect is there. So for example, kulalasya karma ghato bhavati. Right? The effect of a potter will become a pot, right? Or the effect of a weaver will become a cloth, right? So we have the word karya. The word karya is used not just to mean punya papa, not just to mean, sorry, karma. The word karma is used to mean not just punya papa or not just an action, but it is also used to mean something that is made, created, something that is brought into being. So if we take that, then it becomes very straightforward that the creator of the entire Jagat is Brahman, right? Which is why, now let us come back to the Sutra, Jagadvachitvat, right? So the way that the Sutrakara does it is, the Sutrakara will give the reason that will cause the meaning of the entire mantra to flip towards Brahman, right? So the problem here lied in the word karma being interpreted as punya papa, right? The problem is then that this can only apply to the jiva. So now what Sutrakara says is Jagadvachitva. The word karma applies to the Jagat. The word karma means Jagat as an effect, as a karya, right? So Jagadvachitva. Because the word karma is Jagadvachi, refers to the Jagat, therefore it is Brahman. So now what do we have here? Upanishad has talked about Brahman solely as the cause of the world, right? Savai Veditavyaha, know that Brahman. And what is the only quality of Brahman is given? That Yasya Vedat Karma, he by whom this world has been created. That is the only quality that Upanishad has given. It has not mentioned Brahman being the Sthitikaraka, it has not mentioned Brahman being the Layakaraka, right? So, in this way, Shruti itself has given us 3 examples wherein it just talks about Brahman as Sthitikaraka, where it just talks about Brahman as Layakaraka, where it just talks about Brahman as Jagat Janmakaraka. So therefore, coming again full circle back to the place where we started, it follows that only one of these is enough to be Brahman's Lakshana. It is enough to say Jagat Janmakaranatvam Brahmalakshana. Jagat Sthitikaranatvam Brahmalakshanam. That is also enough. Jagat Layakaranatvam Brahmalakshanam. That is also enough. So far we have covered this paksha in which only one of these is enough. Now there is now another school of thought that Dikshitendra is putting forth, wherein they say that is not exactly the case. We disagree with you. In our school of thought, so these are all Advaitins, right? So in our school of thought, we say that you actually kind of have to have all 3 of these together, and there is a reason for this. So in Karanas, there are 2 kinds of Karanas that Advaitins accept. So we accept Nimitta Karana and Upadana Karana. So these generally in Tarkikas have 3 Karanas. They have Samavayi, Asamavayi and Nimitta. But Vedantins do not accept Asamavayi Karana. So for us, Samavayi Karana is basically the Upadana Karana. And the Nimitta is the Nimitta Upadana, the intelligent cause, it is called. And Upadana is the efficient cause. So basically for a pot, it is one more thing. It is my habit to use the Sanskrit terms because it is my opinion that Vedanta, being an Indian science, an Indian philosophy, it is best described in Indian terms. So I make it a point in my talks and all to use the Sanskrit terms instead of the English. So I hope you all will bear with that and follow. So the Upadana is what is called the material cause, right? So like the mud for a pot or like threads for a cloth. Right, so the actual materials that make up the end result. Nimitta Karana is called the intelligent cause, like the potter. Right, so if you ask of what the pot consists of, the pot does not consist of the potter. The cloth does not consist of the weaver. Right, but yet the weaver is still a cause. Right, so therefore those all are there. Then there are other things for the potter like danda chakra, like the potter's wheel, the stick that he uses to turn it and all that. These are all called sahakari karanas. These are all called assisting. These are all called assisting effects. But main karanas will be these 2: the intelligent cause and the material cause. So the thing is, the laya karana will always be an upadana. This is one very interesting thing. So the cause of dissolution. What do we mean by the cause of dissolution? If you remember what Veda said, yat prayanti visamvisanti, that into which they dissolve. Right? We don't mean that because of which dissolution happens. between that into which dissolution happens, right? So that will always be the upadana karana. It will never be the nimitta karana. Because even like this is common sense, right? If you break a pot, where does the pot go? Does the pot go and dissolve into the pot, or does it become mud? Right? It becomes mud. In the same way, if you rip a cloth apart, it will rip it apart into threads, right? It'll so the laya karana, right? When something dissolves or is destroyed, it always reverts back to its upadana karana. It always so that is what is called dissolving back into the upadana karana. Right, so you have a pot, you smash it. Where did the pot go? You are left with a lump of mud. Right, so the pot, quote unquote, dissolved back into mud. Right, the pot dissolved back into mud. So therefore, the upadana karana, the laya karana will have to be the upadana. Right. So so there is no problem so far. But in sthitika, in the cause of janma and sthiti, there is always the cause that nimitta karana is different and upadana karana is different. Right. So the two examples that Dikshatandra gives here is Ghatajanmani, Ghatajanmani kulalavat, Ghatasthayamani, Ghatajanmani kulalavat, Rajyasthayamani Rajavat. Right. So just as although the upadana of a pot is mud, the nimitta karana will be a potter. Right. In the same way, a Rajya, right? A Rajya is the people, right? There's a famous Telugu saying, Deshamante Mattikado, Mattikado, Deshamante Manushalai. Right? A country is not the mud, the country is its people. Right? So if you take a kingdom to be its people, the Upadana Karana of a kingdom will be its people. But the Nimitta Karana will be the king, right? Because this is a king that puts it into place. So for the birth of the pot, right? So for the Janma Karana of the pot will be as the Upadana, it will be one thing. As the Nimitta, it will be another thing. In the same way, for a Rajya Sthiti, right? For the sustenance of a kingdom, king. As Upadana, it will be the people. So the problem with taking each of these separately is Janma Sthitikaranatvayoha Nimitta Sadharanya. The problem is for Janma Karana and Sthitikarana, Upadana and Nimitta may be different. The thing with Brahman is we take Abhinna Nimittopadana Karanata. Brahman is both the Nimitta and the Upadana. Brahman is both the intelligent and the efficient cause. And the most beautiful example that Veda gives for this is a spider. Right? So it is both the spider that decides to weave its own web, and it weaves its web out of itself. Right? So that is why Veda says Yathoranabhis Srijate Grandhate cha. And actually Veda adds one more thing. So the Urnanabhi, right? One that has Urna, that silk in its Nabhi, in its navel. Right? So the spider creates the web out of itself and dissolves the web back into itself. Right? And also it is its own sankalpa, right? It is the spider that decides to do so. And the second, so in the same way, it is Brahman that decides, right? That Bahusyam Prajayeya. It is Brahman that decided, okay, I will become many now. Right? Tadekshata, Bahusyam Prajayeya, or Tat Tapotapyata, right? It tapas, it had a sankalpa. Right? Kamastalagre Samavartatadhi, Manasoreta Prathamayadasit. Right? There is one sankalpa that was there in the beginning of time. Right? So that sankalpa was done by Brahman, as in Brahman decided to create the world, created the world and became the world also. Right? Tat srishtva tadevanupravishat. It became the world and it permeated the world also. So therefore, the problem with having all of these qualities separately is that you run into the problem that the nimitta and upadana karana might become different. So if you wish to protect the interpretation of this lakshana, or if you wish to ensure that the nimitta and upadana karanas, that the Brahman is by both nimitta and upadana the karana of the world, you have to have all three of these in one lakshana. It won't be enough to have them separately, because when you have laya karanatva separately, you will only have upadanatva. If you have sthiti karanatva separately and janma karanatva separately, janma upadana this nimitta might be different and upadana might be different. But if you wish to make sure that Brahman is understood as the upadana and nimitta of the world Srishti Sthiti Laya, then you have to make sure that you string all of these together into one quality so that there is no question about whether one can be detached from the other. Which is why that school of thought has put forth that these three together have to be one quality. So now we have the question. So now Brahman is the upadana, right? So generally in the loka, upadana is of two kinds: nimitta, arambha and parinama. There are two vadas: arambhavada and parinamavada. The Nayayika school takes up the arambhavada. The Sankhya school takes up the parinamavada. So in arambhavada, what happens is many things come together to form the result, right? So that is the way for them that the result becomes formed, right? So for them, two anus come together to form a Dhyanuka, three Dhyanukas come together to form a Trinuka, four Trinukas come together to form a Chitranuka. So many things come together to form the effect. So with the Sankhya, it is a bit different. For the Sankhya, it is avidya, maya, prakriti that becomes. So for them, prakriti changes, right? Prakriti does not, there is no joining and meeting up, but changes. The way that milk becomes curd, right? The way that kshira becomes dadhi, the way that palu becomes piru, right? In that same way, prakriti changes. But now we have, basically there is also another thing that we need to discuss here. In Arambhavada, the cause is different from the effect. As in the anu is different from the effect. They're supposed to be different. That is why this is called asat karya vada. Means the karya is non-existent in the karana. Right? Asat means non-existent, karya, the effect. So the pot does not exist in the mud. Right? So the mud is shaped and the pot comes into being. There was no pot before. Whereas in the Sankhya school of thought, the pot becomes the mud. The mud becomes the pot. The problem is now in the Sankhya school, there is no pot left. There is no mud left. There is only the pot. Right. So now the person comes and asks us in Advaita. They ask the Advaita. So you are saying that Brahman is, Dikshitendra very nicely used two beautiful words here. Advitiya Kutastha Brahmanaha. He uses two Visheshnas. He gives two adjectives to Brahman here. So he comes and asks. So if you now take the Arambhavada, wherein many things come together to form the effect, how does it, and how can your Brahman be the Karana in that means? Because Brahman is Advitiya. Arambhavada, by definition, it's two things to join up to form a third thing. Right? So Brahman is Advitiya. So it cannot be the Arambhaka for the word. Right? So the Arambhavada does not work here. So that theory of creation does not work. And now Parinama, Kutastha. Kutastha means that which is nirvikari, avikari. Kutastha means that which is not changed. Right? So in Veda you have Kutastham, Achalam, Dhruvam. Right? You have that. So in Veda itself, in Upanishad itself, Brahman is referred to as Kutastha. And even in Gita you have the same line, Kutastham, Achalam, Dhruvam. Although I think that is a slightly different place, I think. But anyway, Brahman is referred to as Kutastha even in Upanishad. Kutastha means avikari. If you take Parinamavada, Vikara has to have, right? Because Vikara means a change in nature. So the milk has to let go of its milkness if it wishes to take upon curdness, right? So in that, if that is the case, then you should be left with no Brahman. Right? Brahman should become the world, and then there should be no Brahman left over. So if this is the case, then I don't think you can define Brahman as being the quality, as being the cause of the world. You cannot define Brahman as being the Karana. Because it is neither the Parinama Upadana, nor Parinami Upadana, nor is it the Arambhaka Upadana. So therefore, Brahman cannot be the cause of the world. So the last hour and 15 minutes of my lecture, wherein I very painstakingly went through Brahmasutra and Upanishads and this and that to show that Brahman is the cause of the world, was all in vain. Says the Purva Paksha. Okay, obviously we have our response to that, wherein we say that no, Advaitins accept something else called Vivarta. So Vivarta is an apparent change, right? So the example we give here is the rope and the snake. Our Kula Devata in Advaita, forget Shiva. Kula Deva is this rope and snake. When we get up in the morning, we should do Namaskaram to them. Without those two, Advaita will not have stood this long. Right? So when the snake morphs into the rope, right, it is only an apparent transformation. So yeah, your ropeness is not beheld, the snakeness is beheld. But the change that is beheld is not one that is vastava, it is not one that is true. Right. So what this means is Swarupa Anupamarda. Right. So the Swarupa of the rope is not affected when it appears as the snake. Right? In the same way, the jiva, when the jiva has a dream, right? When swapna happens, the swarupa of the jiva is not affected as he takes up all the roles in his dream. So in the same way, we take up a third type of upadana called vivartopadana. So wherein there is a third type of upadana wherein the cause only apparently morphs into the effect, which is why there is this one nice shloka. Satatvatonyatha pratha vikara ityudahataha atatvatonyatha pratha vivarta ityudahataha. So the Sankhyas take parinama, right? We said parinama, where vikara takes place. So what is vikara? Satatvataha anyatha pratha, an actual change in something's nature is vikara. So yeah, milk has actually become curd, right? That is a fact. It has actually changed nature. But the thing is here, what is vivarta? Atatvataha anyatha prana. It is not actual. It is atatvika. It is not legitimate. It is not true. Right. So the snake has not actually become the rope. It is only appearing as the rope. So in the same way, Brahman is the karana of the Jagat insofar as it appears as the Jagat. Not that Brahman had something else with which it merged up to create the Jagat. Nor did Brahman change itself, nor did Brahman undergo vikara to become Jagat, but rather it has manifested, it has appeared as the Jagat. So that is the Vivarta Upadana. And we will talk about the Satkaryavada and Vivartavada more in the evening session. And then we will also talk about, so till now we have said Brahma is the Upadana. Now Brahman is just the name for the Chaitanya, right? So we have said Chaitanya is the Upadana. Now, is this Shuddha Chaitanya? Is this Chaitanya as Ishvara? Is this Chaitanya as the Jiva? So all of these pakshas are also there. So we will look at how our Acharyas, various Acharyas, Sakshaksharika Acharya, Vivaranacharya, how all of these Acharyas have put forth their matas. So maybe we thought, right, it will be very easy to define the words. Yeah, Brahman made it done and dusted. But if we wish to delve deeper, if you wish to wet your mind on the whetstone of Shastra, there is a lot of fun to be had. So we will continue with that in the evening. And if there are any questions, by all means, please do ask. Ityasha Vagme Puja Shrivat Shankarabadeva Pita Deva Devesha Priyatam Me Sadashiva Tavatatvanna Janami Kidrishosi Maheshwara Yadrishosi Mahadeva Tadrishaya Namo Namaha. Any questions, please?
Thank you so much, Lalitji. Such a it was a power-packed, talk, if I could say. There were so many concepts, but beautifully presented in a very logical, cohesive way. So there are two questions. I will just relay them to you. Is Ishvara Karta? Is Jiva Karta?
No, so exactly. That is I'm assuming you're asking about the Karta of the Jagat, I'm assuming, not the Karma Karta. Again, that is what I said, that is one of the things that we'll take up in the evening session, because Vivaranacharya says it is the Ishvara. There is another Vada called Drishti Srishti Vada, wherein they say actually Ishvara has nothing to do with anything. The Jiva is the cause of literally everything that goes on in this world. So that is in their Mata, Jiva is the Karta. So we will talk about that there. Yeah.
There's another question. How will we justify Bhuta is equal to Prani?
Bhuta is very commonly used to mean Prani. Right? Bhuta Disamse Vata Viganam. I don't know why that popped into my head. Bhuta Disamse Charanam. It means all beings are worshipping Ganesha's feet. right? I think in Indian regional languages we are used to bhuta meaning bhuta, preta, pishacha, all of that. That is exactly what we mean bhuta in. But bhuta, if we look at the etymological meaning, bhuta literally means that which exists. Bhuta, bhusattaya, that which exists, that which has come into existence. So all things that are born, right? Bhava means birth. So that which has bhava is bhuta, that which has been born is prani, something that is alive.
Right.
So yeah, it is very common. It is very common that bhuta, that is why they have written that bhuta is very commonly used to mean prani or the Panchamahabhutas. So that is rudhi. It is called rudhi. So there are two meanings generally that a shabda has. So rudhi, which is where it is dictionary definition, where it is always used, and then yogika, wherein the etymological meaning can also apply there. For example, you have a very common word is jalaja, right? Jalaja. Jalaja is lotus, right? If you say Jalaja to anyone, you will immediately say lotus. It's very obvious, very Jalaja, Aksha, Padma, all of this, it is very obvious that Jalaja is lotus. But Jalaja means that which is born in Jala, right? Jala Jayate, that which is born in Jala. So technically, it can also be a fish, it can be a moss, it can be a lily, it can be anything that is. But established in the meaning of a lotus, like that. But Bhuta has Rudhi. In Pranyata, it has Rudhi. It is the dictionary definition itself will give you Pranyata. It is very commonly used there. Good questions.
Thank you.
So again, as you said, I know it is a bit heavy, but I am hoping that this will not just be Shravana, but this can also be used for Manana. In that, if you come back to it, there should be some substance that you can come back to look over and mull over. So I have made it dense on purpose. I hope you are not lost. That is the only thing. So as long as you can follow, that is fine. You can always the recording will be there, right? So you can always come back to it, and I hope that you will come back to it to do Chintana and to shore up on concepts. So evening 5 o'clock, right?
Yes, we will meet again at 5 o'clock to continue our study.
Definitely, yeah. Okay. Ram.
Ram.
Shri Guru.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Same link, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Ram.